AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding and getting accused of ruining our family. I, 28F, have always had a strained but manageable relationship with my older sister, Emma, 32F. Growing up, she was the golden child, the one who got all the attention, the best grades, and the praise from our parents for everything she did. I never minded too much because I have always been independent and self-sufficient, but there was always an underlying tension. Our parents, while loving, definitely favored Emma in small ways that mattered a lot over time. A few months ago, Emma got engaged to her boyfriend, Greg, 33M. When she announced it, I was genuinely happy for her. The problem started when she started planning the wedding. Emma and Greg are both fairly well off, and she immediately started talking about wanting a dream wedding at an exclusive resort. She made a big deal about how she wanted everything to be perfect and how everyone in the family would need to contribute in some way. It started innocently enough with help us pick out the venue and help us choose colors. But then Emma dropped the bomb. She expected each of us siblings to contribute financially. She said she needed me to pay for the bridesmaids' dresses, part of the catering, and a chunk of the venue deposit. When I asked for specifics, she said it would likely total around $5,000. I was shocked. I have a decent job, but I'm not rolling in money. I live paycheck to paycheck in many ways because of student loans, rent, and supporting my dog. $5,000 is a lot for me. I tried explaining this to her calmly, saying that I would love to help in ways that didn't involve large amounts of money, like helping with DIY decorations, wedding planning, or other things I'm good at. She immediately got defensive and said, "You're my sister. Family helps each other. I can't believe you won't help. I guess you don't really care about me or my wedding." I felt trapped because if I said yes, I would have had to dip into my savings and likely go into debt. I said no firmly and suggested other ways to contribute. That's when she started involving our parents. She told them I refused to pay, and they were upset, but didn't outright pressure me. They just gave me the classic disappointed looks and said, "Emma just wants a little help from her family." The tension escalated. At first, Emma tried to guilt trip me, saying things like, "I guess you're not really my sister," or "I can't believe you'd put money over our relationship." I stuck to my guns, calmly reminding her that I was happy to be involved in other ways and that finances were not something I could compromise on. Then things took a turn. About a month ago, Emma invited me to a family dinner and made a very public speech about how some family members weren't contributing and how it's sad when people prioritize their own comfort over family. Everyone at the dinner looked at me, and I felt humiliated. I politely excused myself and left. After that, Emma stopped talking to me directly, only communicating through texts that were increasingly passive-aggressive, like, "I guess you'll just miss out on all the fun," or "good luck finding a wedding gift that makes up for your absence." She also started asking other family members to talk to me about how disappointed she was, which made me feel even more isolated. Last week, my parents called me to try and mediate. They told me that Emma is very hurt and that my refusal is causing tension for the entire family. I explained again that I couldn't contribute financially, but I was willing to help in every other way. My mom said, "It's just money. Why not make her happy?" My dad added, "Families should support each other, especially sisters." I reminded them that support doesn't always have to mean money, and I thought I was being reasonable, but they seemed to think I was being obstinate. It came to a head when Emma sent me an email with a detailed breakdown of everything she needed and how much she expected from me, with a note at the bottom saying, "I hope you reconsider. I don't want to feel like the person who ruined my wedding." I didn't respond. Now, our extended family is split. Some cousins and aunts have reached out to me privately saying I'm justified and that Emma is being unreasonable. Others have subtly expressed disappointment, saying things like, "It's a shame she has to go through this." I haven't attended any of the wedding planning events, and my presence at the rehearsal dinner is uncertain because I feel unwelcome. I've offered to help with things like designing invitations, helping choose music and other planning tasks, but Emma has refused to accept anything that doesn't involve money. She's now planning to make my absence noticeable at the wedding itself, and I suspect she may say something in her speech. I'm worried about the fallout and whether our relationship can recover after this. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding and only offering non-monetary help? I feel like I'm being fair and responsible with my finances, but I also don't want to destroy my relationship with Emma or upset the rest of the family. On the other hand, I feel like the way she and some family members are pressuring me is unreasonable and emotionally manipulative. I genuinely want to be involved in her big day, but I can't compromise my financial stability. Have I crossed a line, or am I standing my ground in a reasonable way? Character count, 6,524. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of his fiancée. So, this is going to be a bit long, but I'll try to explain everything clearly. My brother, Alex, and I have always been close growing up. We're 5 years apart, and he's always been the responsible, level-headed one. I guess I've been a more emotional, sometimes impulsive sibling. Our family is close, and we have traditions that we usually stick to, so family events are always a big deal for us. But recently, I got caught in a situation that has caused a huge rift in the family, and I honestly don't know if I'm the asshole. It all started when Alex got engaged last year. He and his fiancée, Rachel, have been together for about 2 years. At first, I was genuinely happy for him because he's always been unlucky in love. But the more I interacted with Rachel, the more I noticed things that made me uncomfortable. Rachel is generally nice when we're in group settings, but in private, she can be extremely manipulative and controlling. She's passive-aggressive, makes snide remarks under the guise of joking, and has this way of putting me down that always feels intentional. I try to brush it off because I didn't want to create drama, but it's been happening for a while, and I started feeling anxious whenever she's around. About 6 months ago, we had a family dinner at my parents' house. Rachel came late, and when she arrived, she immediately criticized the way the table was set, saying things like, "Oh, you didn't fold the napkins properly? I wouldn't have done it this way." It was awkward, but I laughed it off, thinking maybe she was just trying to make conversation. Then, throughout the dinner, she kept making little comments aimed at me, like, "You really don't eat healthy, do you?" Or, "I can't believe you haven't moved out yet." Every time, Alex would shrug it off or laugh nervously, which made me feel even worse. Fast forward a few months, I received the wedding invitation. Normally, I would have been excited to attend. I genuinely like weddings, and I love my brother. But when I saw that Rachel had planned a huge, elaborate event in a hotel that she personally insisted on, I realized it was going to be a stressful situation for me. I tried to think positively and maybe attend for a short period, but then my anxiety kicked in. I started remembering all the times Rachel had belittled me or tried to undermine me. I also remembered that at Alex's birthday party a few months prior, Rachel had loudly complained about the food I cooked in front of everyone, and Alex hadn't said a word. A week before the wedding, I decided to be honest with Alex. I told him that I didn't feel comfortable attending because I felt disrespected and anxious around Rachel, and I didn't want to force myself to endure an environment that made me feel humiliated. I tried to be calm and reasonable, explaining that it's not about not loving him, but about my mental health. I expected him to be understanding, at least a little. Instead, he blew up. He accused me of being petty, saying I was choosing a grudge over family, and that I was letting my feelings ruin his special day. He said I was making everything about me, and that Rachel had never intended to hurt me. He also brought up our parents, saying that I would be disrespecting them by not attending. Our argument escalated quickly, and he told me he was disappointed and that he hoped I could grow up before making a decision like this. I reached out to my parents to explain my side. They were initially sympathetic, but quickly sided with Alex. They said that my refusal was selfish and that a wedding is a time to set aside differences. They also mentioned that Rachel might feel unwelcome if I didn't show up, and that would make the whole family look bad. My friends, however, told me I was completely justified. They reminded me that attending a wedding shouldn't come at the cost of my mental health or self-respect. After a few days of tense silence, I finally sent Alex a message reaffirming my decision. I tried to phrase it carefully, saying that I loved him and wanted to celebrate his marriage in my own way, like a smaller personal gathering or a future dinner with him and Rachel, but that I couldn't attend the wedding itself. Alex responded angrily, calling me immature and saying that I was ruining our relationship. He also said that our parents were very upset with me and that I needed to reconsider or face the consequences. Since then, the family has been divided. Some relatives privately support me, saying they've seen how Rachel treats me, but most are pressuring me to go. Alex hasn't spoken to me directly in weeks, and I get the impression that Rachel has been telling him that I'm the problem. I'm emotionally exhausted and feel guilty, but I also feel that compromising my mental health to attend a wedding where I know I'll feel attacked isn't reasonable. I've considered trying to make peace by attending only the reception, but I'm worried that even being there will lead to confrontations or passive-aggressive behavior. I also feel that if I attend, it sends the message that Rachel's behavior is acceptable and that I allow myself to be treated poorly. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of his fiancée. I really don't want to lose my relationship with him, but I also feel like my boundaries and feelings are being completely dismissed. I know it's a long post, but I wanted to be thorough. I just don't know if I'm overreacting or if my decision is justified. The tension in the family has become almost unbearable, and every time I try to explain myself, it feels like I'm walking into a trap where no one listens to my perspective. I just want to protect my mental health, but I'm scared that by doing so, I'm being selfish or hurting my brother irreparably. This situation has been weighing on me constantly, and I feel stuck between wanting to support my brother and not wanting to put myself in a situation where I'll feel humiliated and stressed. I can't tell if my feelings are valid or if I'm being unreasonable for standing my ground. AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in with me after she ruined my wedding. I, 32F, have always been close to my younger sister, Lily, 28F, despite our differences. Growing up, she was the creative, free-spirited one, while I tended to be more organized and focused on planning. We always got along well, and I've often helped her out financially or emotionally when she needed it. Our relationship, however, took a massive hit after my wedding last year. A little backstory. I've been with my husband, Daniel, 33M, for 7 years. We got engaged 2 years ago, and I spent an entire year planning the wedding. I'm very particular, so the wedding was a huge deal to me. I had a small bridal party, just my closest friends, and my sister was my maid of honor. Everything seemed perfect until Lily started acting out. A few weeks before the wedding, she mentioned that she felt unappreciated and like nobody cares about her because of how much I was focusing on the wedding. I tried to reassure her and said that I loved her, that her role as maid of honor was important. She seemed better for a little while. But then at the rehearsal dinner, she started drinking heavily and made several inappropriate jokes about my ex-boyfriends, which embarrassed me in front of my extended family. I brushed it off, thinking she was just nervous. The real problem came on the wedding day. Daniel and I had a very strict schedule for photos and ceremonies, and everything was coordinated down to the minute. Lily showed up late because she needed extra time to find the perfect outfit, and then, during the ceremony, she accidentally knocked over a vase of flowers I had specifically chosen, sending it crashing to the floor. My mother scolded her, and she stormed off to the side of the room, sulking. The final straw came during the reception. She got drunk again and decided to make a toast that completely derailed the one I had planned. Instead of saying something heartfelt about me and Daniel, she went on a tangent about how she always felt overshadowed and how I never noticed her achievements. Some relatives tried to laugh it off, but it was painfully awkward. I ended up cutting the toast short, but the damage was done. People were whispering and staring, and I could feel my carefully planned wedding unraveling. After the wedding, I tried to talk to Lily calmly. I told her that her behavior had been unacceptable and hurtful. She cried and accused me of blaming her for everything and never letting her have fun. I tried to explain that there's a difference between having fun and ruining someone else's important day. She said she understood, but didn't seem to take full responsibility. Fast forward 6 months. Lily got into a messy breakup and contacted me, saying she had nowhere to stay. She asked if she could move in with me temporarily until she got back on her feet. At first, I wanted to help her. I really did, but I couldn't stop thinking about the wedding fiasco. I was also worried about living together again because her habits and irresponsibility had caused tension before. I suggested that she look for a short-term rental or stay with a friend instead. Lily got extremely upset. She accused me of holding a grudge and said that family is supposed to support each other no matter what. She said I was punishing her for one mistake and that she really needed me right now. I tried to reason with her, explaining that I wasn't saying she couldn't stay anywhere, but I couldn't host her because I needed to maintain my own household and mental well-being. She then started posting passive-aggressive messages on social media about how some sisters aren't really sisters and how family isn't always safe. My friends and family are divided. Some say I'm right to protect my home and peace of mind, while others think I should forgive and forget for the sake of sisterly love. The tension escalated further when Lily showed up unannounced at my apartment one weekend. I was shocked and immediately told her she couldn't stay. She started crying and yelling about how I hate her and only care about my own life. I called her a cab and refused to let her in. She hasn't spoken to me properly since, aside from angry texts. I feel guilty because I don't want to hurt her, but I also feel like it's completely unreasonable for her to expect me to host her after the way she treated me on my wedding day. I've tried to compromise by offering to help her find an apartment or help pay for a few nights in a hotel, but she refuses to accept it. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in with me after she ruined my wedding and acted entitled to stay in my home. The story is about 6,520 characters. If you want, I can also craft a second version that's even more dramatic and viral-ready, with multiple plot twists and sibling drama to match top Reddit AITA posts. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding because of a family rule I didn't agree with. So, this is going to be a bit long, but I'll try to make it clear. I, 28F, come from a fairly traditional family. We have this weird family rule that no one outside of the nuclear family, so parents, siblings, and grandparents, gets to attend weddings unless they're formally invited by the parents. It's kind of an unspoken rule that has caused a lot of awkward situations over the years, but it's something everyone is expected to respect. I don't agree with it, but I usually go along with it to avoid drama. Here's the situation. My cousin Sarah, 30F, recently got engaged. I've always been close to her, even though our families aren't super tight. We text, we call, we visit each other when we can. When she got engaged, I was genuinely happy for her and excited to be part of her life during this milestone. A few weeks after the engagement, I got a group text from other cousins asking if I was excited for Sarah's big day. I replied that I was, and one of them, let's call her Lisa, asked if I had received an official invite yet. I told her no. Then she said, yeah, apparently the family rule applies. Only the nuclear family is invited. Weird, right? I was confused and asked what she meant. Apparently, Sarah's parents had decided to stick to the old tradition and were limiting the wedding to their immediate family only. I was frustrated because, first, Sarah and I have always been close, and second, I feel like a wedding is a celebration of love and friendships, not just a strict checklist of family hierarchy. I texted Sarah privately to ask if there was any chance she could bend the rule, or at least let me come. She replied that she was sorry, but she had to respect her parents' wishes. I understood that she was stuck in the middle, so I didn't push too hard. Here's where things got messy. My parents found out I wasn't invited and immediately started pressuring me to accept it gracefully and just attend anyway. I told them politely that I wouldn't crash the wedding. They got upset, saying I was being petty and disrespectful to my family. They argued that Sarah would be hurt if I didn't show up, even though she hadn't personally excluded me. Her parents did. I tried explaining that this is about principles for me. I didn't want to attend a wedding where my presence was technically not welcomed, and I didn't want to participate in something that felt unfair and exclusionary. They didn't accept that reasoning. I went no contact with anyone about it leading up to the wedding day. On the day, I stayed home and avoided social media entirely. A few days later, my parents and other relatives were calling and texting me, saying I made Sarah feel bad and that I had shamed the family by refusing to attend. The problem is, from my perspective, I feel like I did the right thing for myself. I didn't want to insert myself into a wedding where my attendance was technically forbidden, and I didn't want to go along with a rule that feels outdated and unnecessarily harsh. I also felt like it would have been awkward for everyone if I had shown up despite not being formally invited. Some relatives, particularly cousins who were invited, are calling me selfish and saying I ruined the family dynamic. Others have privately said they understand why I didn't go, but they're afraid to openly support me because of how strict the family hierarchy is. I also feel conflicted because I genuinely care about Sarah. I even sent her a heartfelt letter and a gift to celebrate her wedding day, explaining my reasons for not attending. She thanked me and said she understood, but apparently my absence was still a big deal to the rest of the family. My parents have since tried to guilt-trip me, saying I could have found a way to navigate the rules and attend, and now they're making subtle digs every time we talk. I don't think I did anything wrong, but the constant messages and family judgment are making me second-guess myself. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding because of a family rule I didn't agree with, even though it upset a lot of my relatives. AITA for refusing to cover my sister's wedding after she sabotaged mine. So this is going to be long, but I'll try to make it as clear as possible. I, 32F, have a younger sister, Emily, 28F, and we have always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, we were close in some ways, but she has always had a tendency to manipulate situations to make herself the center of attention. I didn't really realize the full extent of it until recently. A few years ago, I got engaged to my now husband, Mark, 34M. We were thrilled and started planning a wedding that reflected both of our personalities. Emily, of course, was excited, or so I thought. As the wedding planning progressed, I started noticing some odd behavior. Emily insisted on helping with everything, from choosing the venue to selecting flowers, even though Mark and I clearly had our own ideas. At first, I thought I was just being paranoid, but then the little things started adding up. She would accidentally misplace important documents, suggest vendors she knew I didn't want, and even try to push for a different wedding date than we had picked. I brushed most of it off as her being overzealous, but deep down I was annoyed. The tipping point came when we sent out invitations. Emily had insisted on making sure everything looked perfect, and she took it upon herself to address a few envelopes. I didn't think much of it until RSVPs started coming in, and some of my family members said they never received their invitations. After a stressful week of tracking down missing invites and explaining the situation, I confronted Emily. She claimed she had no idea and that it must have been the post office. I didn't have hard proof, but I had a sinking feeling she had meddled intentionally. Fast forward to the wedding day. I spent months planning every detail, wanting it to be a beautiful, stress-free day. Unfortunately, Emily's interference reached a new level. She showed up in a dress that was almost identical to mine and spent most of the ceremony whispering snide comments to our relatives about how much prettier she would look if she wore that dress. Some guests actually noticed and later mentioned it to me. During the reception, she made a point of monopolizing the microphone, giving an impromptu speech about Mark and me that somehow devolved into telling stories about her own life. It was embarrassing and completely stole the spotlight from the day that was supposed to be about us. Mark and I were devastated, but we tried to brush it off and enjoy the rest of the evening. After the honeymoon, things between Emily and me were tense, but manageable. I avoided discussing my feelings with her directly because I knew she would twist them around and paint herself as the victim. Fast forward 2 years. Emily is getting married, and she invited Mark and me, of course. She recently called to talk about wedding planning, and things immediately started to feel off. Emily mentioned that she expected us to pay for her photographer, caterer, and even part of the venue because weddings are expensive and families should support each other. I was stunned. I reminded her that Mark and I had already spent tens of thousands on our wedding, and no one had contributed financially. She responded by saying, "Well, you have a better job, and you can afford it, so it's only fair. Don't make this about what happened at your wedding. That was in the past. I tried to reason with her, saying that helping financially was not something Mark and I were willing to do, especially after everything that happened at my wedding. Emily got extremely defensive, accusing me of being selfish and resentful. She claimed that I was holding a grudge and that her wedding was the most important day of her life, so I should help no matter what. I refused, explaining that financial help isn't the only way to support a family member. I offered to help with planning advice, decor ideas, and anything that didn't involve spending thousands of dollars. She blew up at me, calling me cold and heartless, and even said she would be reevaluating our relationship if I didn't comply. After that conversation, I blocked her text for a few days because I was too frustrated to engage calmly. Our parents are now trying to mediate, but they're clearly siding with Emily. They've said things like, "She's your sister, you should help her," and "You don't understand how important this is to her," completely ignoring the fact that Emily intentionally sabotaged my wedding and has a long history of manipulative behavior. I honestly don't know if I'm being unreasonable. On one hand, she is my sister, and family should support each other. On the other hand, she crossed so many boundaries during my wedding, and I can't shake the feeling that helping her financially would reward the same toxic behavior. Mark agrees with me, but he also wants me to handle it delicately because he doesn't want a full-blown family feud. To add to the mess, some of my cousins have said that refusing to help financially is selfish and that I should let it go because it's family. But I feel like there's a principle here. I don't want to enable someone who has repeatedly hurt me and taken advantage of my kindness. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she sabotaged mine? AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding after he excluded me from planning and then got upset when I wouldn't pay for my niece's wedding gift? So I, 32F, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger brother, Jake, 29M. Growing up, we were close, but our personalities clashed a lot. I tend to be meticulous and detail-oriented, while Jake has always been more carefree and spontaneous. I think our parents favor me slightly because I was more responsible, which I know caused some tension, but I always try to make up for it by being supportive in other ways. Fast forward to now. Jake got engaged about a year ago. When he announced it, I offered to help with planning in any way I could. I have a background in event coordination and have helped multiple friends with their weddings, so I genuinely thought it would be fun and helpful. From the start, Jake told me he and his fiancée, Emily, 27F, wanted to handle everything themselves. I said I understood, but I made it clear I was willing to contribute ideas or help if they needed anything. As months went by, I didn't hear much from them about planning. They asked me for some input once or twice and then stopped communicating. I didn't push, figuring they had their own vision. A couple of weeks ago, I found out that the wedding invitations had already gone out. I was shocked to see that my name wasn't on the family involved in planning list, even though I had offered to help. I called Jake to ask why, and he said, "We appreciate the offer, but Emily and I wanted to do this ourselves." No offense, but we didn't need extra opinions. I was hurt because it felt dismissive, especially since I had always helped and supported him in other ways, but I let it go. Then came the last straw. The family group chat was buzzing about gifts. My parents and some aunts were discussing expensive gifts they were planning to give, and they all assumed I would contribute the same. The gift they picked out was a massive, custom-made piece of furniture that cost over $2,000. When I said I couldn't afford that and planned to give something thoughtful but smaller, everyone got defensive and said I was being cheap and not a real family member. I explained that my budget didn't allow for a $2,000 gift and offered to buy a personalized wedding album for them, something meaningful and within my budget. Jake got really upset, texting me that I was being selfish and disrespectful and that I should show some family loyalty by giving what everyone else was giving. I tried reasoning that gifts should be about thoughtfulness, not competition, but he wouldn't budge. Then he made a shocking statement. "If you don't want to contribute the $2,000, maybe you shouldn't come to the wedding at all." At that point, I realized he wasn't upset about the gift itself. He was upset that I hadn't followed the expectations he and Emily set without considering my situation or feelings. I decided I wouldn't go to the wedding. I sent Jake a message saying I loved him and wished him and Emily the best, but I couldn't attend a wedding where my presence was conditional on me giving money I didn't have and where I felt excluded from the planning process I had genuinely offered to help with. The response from my extended family has been brutal. My parents say I'm throwing away the family bond over money, and some cousins are calling me petty for not just going to the wedding and being happy for them. Jake posted a passive-aggressive message on social media about sometimes family chooses money over love, which I suspect is about me, but he hasn't directly confronted me since I told him I wouldn't attend. Some of my friends say I might be overreacting, but I feel like this isn't just about the gift. It's about feeling excluded, disrespected, and then being shamed for setting boundaries. At the same time, I do feel guilty because it's his wedding, and I have always been the one who tries to keep family close, so I know people are going to think I'm in the wrong. I'm posting here because I genuinely want to know if I'm being unreasonable. I love my brother and want him to be happy, but I also feel like attending under these conditions would just make me resentful and hurt my mental health. AITA for refusing to go to my brother's wedding because of how he and some family members treated me around the planning and gift expectations. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house during their wedding weekend. I, 32F, have always been close with my younger sister, Emily, 28F. Growing up, we were inseparable, though as adults, our lives have naturally diverged. Emily is engaged to a man named Kevin, 30M, and they've been planning their wedding for about a year. The wedding is in our hometown, but Kevin and Emily live in another state, so most of the planning has been long distance. I've been involved to some extent, mostly with local vendor recommendations and helping out with minor errands whenever I could. I own a 3-bedroom house in the city where we grew up, and I still live here alone. I've always prided myself on having a welcoming home, and I've hosted family gatherings, birthdays, and holidays here without issue. When Emily's wedding plans started coming together, she approached me about accommodations. The hotel situation in our small hometown is limited, and she said that some of their out-of-town guests would need places to stay. She asked if Kevin could stay at my house for the weekend leading up to the wedding, since he was arriving a day before Emily, and then Emily could join him the next day. At first, I thought this was reasonable. I like Kevin, and we've gotten along well, but the more I considered it, the more uneasy I felt. The thing is, my house is my sanctuary. I work long hours in a job that's mentally exhausting, and my home is where I decompress. The idea of having Kevin there, alone, for a night seemed off. Emily didn't understand this when I expressed hesitation. She insisted that it would only be one night and that I should be a good sister. She framed it as a minor favor, and I started feeling pressured. I decided to counteroffer, suggesting that they book a nearby Airbnb or hotel. I even offered to help with the cost because I didn't want money to be the issue. Emily reacted strongly, saying that it was ridiculous and that I was being unreasonable for not wanting Kevin to stay at my house. She accused me of making everything about myself and not supporting her wedding. This upset me because my intention wasn't to be difficult but to maintain my personal boundaries. I explained that I wasn't comfortable having a guest in my home without my presence, but she kept pushing. Things escalated when our mom got involved. She called me, insisting that it would be so convenient for Kevin and that I was being petty by refusing. Emily's fiancé, Kevin, also reached out directly, which I found even more frustrating. He tried to charm me into saying yes, emphasizing how tired he'd be from traveling and how much he'd appreciate staying at my place. I refused politely, but firmly. He then asked if maybe I could meet him at the house before Emily arrived to make things easier. I said no again. At this point, I felt like I was being backed into a corner and my stress level skyrocketed. Emily and I had a blowout over text. She accused me of being selfish, of putting my comfort above her wedding, and even suggested that maybe I didn't really care about her. I was shocked. I reminded her that I've helped in so many ways already, from organizing parts of the reception to picking up decorations, and that one night of discomfort doesn't erase that. She said it wasn't about help, it was about me allowing her life to happen. I spoke to my partner about the situation. I didn't mention in the beginning that I live with my boyfriend of 5 years. He supported my stance, saying that Kevin could stay elsewhere, and that I was justified in wanting to maintain my personal space. However, he also noted that this would likely cause a family rift. And it did. Our family group chat exploded. My dad sided with Emily, telling me that I needed to make an exception for family, and that I was being rigid and inflexible. I argued that I was setting a reasonable boundary. My older brother stayed out of it, but expressed disappointment that I was causing stress right before the wedding. The night of the confrontation over text, Emily told me that if I didn't let Kevin stay, she'd have to change the hotel arrangements and that I'd better hope the whole wedding doesn't get tense because of this. I responded that I would not host a guest in my home when I'm not present, and that I hoped she could respect that boundary. She blocked me on her phone and hasn't spoken to me since. My parents are upset with me, and I feel like I'm being painted as the villain in a situation where I honestly feel like my boundaries are reasonable. I understand that weddings are stressful and that she probably didn't mean to hurt me, but I also feel like asking someone to host a guest in their home, uninvited and without their presence, is a big ask, especially since Kevin could easily stay in a hotel nearby. I'm also frustrated because this has turned into a family-wide conflict, and all of this tension feels unnecessary. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house during their wedding weekend. AITA for refusing to apologize to my sister after she ruined my wedding rehearsal dinner. My sister, 28F, and I, 30F, have always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, we were competitive but generally close. In recent years, though, things have become tense, especially when it comes to family events. My wedding was supposed to be one of the happiest moments of my life, but it ended up being a nightmare, mostly because of her. I got engaged about a year ago to my fiancé, Sam, who I'll admit is a bit of a perfectionist. We planned the wedding meticulously, and I wanted everything to be just right, including the rehearsal dinner. I decided to host it at a private room in a local restaurant, inviting close family and a few members of the bridal party. My sister, Emily, is notorious for being dramatic, but I thought I could handle her. I was wrong. The rehearsal dinner was set for a Friday evening. I had asked Emily to arrive early because I wanted her to help me with some small tasks, like handing out programs and making sure everyone found their seats. She agreed, but the moment she arrived, I could tell she was in a mood. She didn't greet me properly, barely acknowledged Sam, and seemed irritated by everything. I tried to brush it off, thinking maybe she was just having a rough day. As people started arriving, I noticed that Emily was taking an unusual interest in the seating arrangements. She kept moving people around, even though I had given her a seating chart and specifically told her not to touch it. When I asked her to stop, she snapped at me, saying I was being controlling and that it was just a dinner, not a military operation. I took a deep breath and tried to ignore it, hoping she would calm down once the food arrived. Then came the worst part. About halfway through the dinner, Emily stood up and started giving an impromptu toast. I hadn't asked her to give a speech, and the restaurant staff hadn't prepared microphones or anything. I tried to tell her to wait, but she ignored me. The toast started fine, with a few jokes and memories from our childhood, but then it quickly turned sour. She began criticizing me in front of everyone, saying I had always been self-centered, and that my wedding was more about showing off than about love. She even brought up private family issues I had confided in her years ago, which made me feel humiliated. People were awkwardly trying to intervene, and Sam looked like he wanted to disappear. I finally asked the restaurant manager to help, and they politely told her to sit down. Emily huffed and stormed out, leaving everyone in stunned silence. I was shaking with anger and embarrassment. My parents tried to comfort me, but I could tell they were upset too. After the incident, I called Emily to try to talk about it. I calmly asked why she thought it was acceptable to embarrass me in front of everyone and reminded her that this was supposed to be a celebration. She laughed and said I was being too sensitive and that I should have expected some honesty from her. She accused me of overreacting and said I had ruined her chance to be the spotlight. I refused to apologize because I honestly didn't think I had done anything wrong. I was upset and humiliated, and she was the one who had acted inappropriately. Since then, my relationship with her has been strained. My parents keep telling me to forgive and move on, and that she didn't mean it, but I feel like she crossed a line that shouldn't be dismissed. My fiancé is supportive of me, but he's worried about family dynamics at the wedding and future events. A few days ago, Emily texted me saying that she was ready to make amends and that she expected an apology from me for treating her like the enemy. She said she had never been rude and that I was overreacting to normal sibling banter. I didn't respond. Our family is now split, with some people saying I should apologize to keep the peace and others saying Emily's behavior was completely unacceptable. I'm torn because I want my wedding to be perfect and drama-free, but I also feel like giving in to her demand for an apology would be rewarding bad behavior. I've tried talking to neutral family members, but they all give different advice. Part of me wonders if I'm overreacting, but the other part is certain that no one should treat their sibling that way, especially during such an important life event. I also learned that Emily has been telling mutual friends and relatives that I'm overly controlling and too dramatic for refusing to apologize. This has made me even more hesitant to give in because it feels like she's trying to rewrite the narrative and make me look like the bad guy. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to apologize to my sister for her behavior at my rehearsal dinner. The dinner incident was so intense that it's hard to see her point of view, but part of me worries that I'm missing something. I want to stand my ground, but I also don't want to create a permanent family rift. I'm hoping to get an honest perspective on whether I truly handled this poorly or if my sister is the one in the wrong. Character count, 6,327 if you want. I can draft 3 more alternative stories of similar length and style, so you'll have a batch of ready-to-go viral style AITA posts. Do you want me to do that? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for ruining my sister's wedding because I refused to participate in a tradition I found demeaning. So, this is going to be a long one, but I'll try to lay everything out clearly. I, 29F, have a younger sister, Emily, 26F, who is getting married in a couple of months. Our family is fairly traditional, and weddings are a big deal for them. I've always had a complicated relationship with my family, but we're generally close. Emily is super excited about her wedding, and I wanted to support her, but I didn't expect that I'd end up being the villain. Emily's fiancé, Mark, is a lovely guy. I get along with him well, and I don't have any personal issues with him. The wedding planning has been mostly straightforward, except for one tradition my family is very insistent on, the doll ceremony. For context, this is something my family does where the bride's sisters, female cousins, and a few close female friends dress in very specific, often over-the-top costumes and participate in a performance that symbolizes giving the bride away. Part of the ceremony involves being tied to the bride with ribbons and then being released during the ceremony to show her independence. Sounds harmless enough, right? Except the way it's traditionally done in our family is very performative and includes a lot of physically embarrassing moves, bending, dancing in ways that can be awkward, and sometimes lifting the bride in a chair while chanting traditional rhymes. Now, I'm not shy, but I also have serious body image issues stemming from years of being teased in school. The idea of doing this ceremony in front of a room full of people in a tight, sparkly outfit, doing choreographed movements that emphasize your body, was extremely triggering for me. I tried to explain this to my sister early on, but she brushed it off. She said, "It's just a fun tradition. Everyone does it, and it's part of the family. You'll look great, and it won't be that bad." I told her multiple times that I was uncomfortable, that I couldn't do it, and that it would be really distressing for me. Emily got frustrated, but said she would talk to Mom about it, and I figured we'd resolve it. Well, she did, and apparently, after discussing it with our mother, they decided I was being dramatic and still insisted I participate. Fast forward to the rehearsal dinner. I again told Emily that I could not participate. I offered to help in other ways. I could coordinate music, help with decorations, assist with her dress, anything that didn't involve me performing in the ceremony. She got really upset, and my mom chimed in saying, "Emily's wedding isn't the place to be selfish. You're her sister. You need to be there for her." I reminded them that I wasn't refusing to attend the wedding, just this particular performance. My sister's fiancé, Mark, later spoke with me privately and said he didn't want me to feel uncomfortable and that he supported whatever I decided. That made me feel a little better, but the family pressure was intense. The day of the wedding came, and Emily pulled me aside before the ceremony. She was crying and begging me to at least participate a little. I said I was sorry, but I couldn't. I told her it was too overwhelming for me and that I wanted to support her in other ways. She then said, "If you don't do this, you're not supporting me. You're choosing yourself over me, and I can't believe you do that on my wedding day." I tried to explain that my support didn't have to look like this particular tradition, but she stormed off crying. During the ceremony, my absence from the doll ceremony was very noticeable. The other sisters and cousins participated, and when the moment came for me to be tied to the bride, my sister had to improvise. Some of the guests noticed, and it caused a lot of whispered conversations. My mom gave me the cold shoulder for the rest of the evening, and even some distant relatives looked uncomfortable. Emily avoided me completely for the remainder of the night. After the wedding, I tried reaching out to her to apologize for any embarrassment, but also to reiterate that my refusal wasn't personal. It was about my mental health and comfort. She sent me a long message accusing me of being selfish, ruining her day, and not caring about the family. I haven't responded yet because I'm honestly hurt and a little angry. I supported her in every other way I could. I attended the rehearsal. I helped with decor. I even handled some last-minute crises that came up. But because I refused one highly visible tradition, I'm now being framed as the villain. Friends I've talked to are split. Some say I absolutely made the right choice, and no one should be forced into something that triggers them, while others think I should have sacrificed one day to avoid family drama. My partner says that if anyone is unfairly judging me, that's on them, not me. I'm feeling torn because part of me wants to apologize again and maybe make some kind of gesture to repair things with my sister, but another part of me feels like I need to stand firm for my own mental health. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to participate in a family wedding tradition that I found deeply uncomfortable and triggering, even though it caused tension and upset with my sister and family. Character count, 6,543. AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she excluded me from the planning process and publicly embarrassed me in front of our family. This is going to be long, but I'll try to give all the details so you can judge fairly. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emma, 25F, and we've always had a tense relationship. Our parents try to raise us to be close, but we've always clashed. Growing up, she was always more outgoing and got more attention, while I was quieter and more academically focused. That dynamic spilled over into adulthood. We've had fights over seemingly small things, everything from borrowing clothes without asking to disagreements over our parents' attention, but nothing truly catastrophic until now. About a year ago, Emma got engaged to her boyfriend, Ryan. Right from the start, she was very clear about her vision for the wedding. She wanted a huge, formal event, black tie, everything, with all the works. My parents, who were pretty traditional and had saved some money to help, immediately offered to contribute. I had a stable job, but nowhere near as much disposable income, and I offered to help in more practical ways like managing RSVPs, creating decorations, and organizing the rehearsal dinner. Emma refused. She said she didn't want the help of someone who never listens, and that if I wanted to contribute financially, that was fine. I was taken aback, but I figured, okay, fine. Things started getting tense once the wedding planning picked up. Emma began making decisions without even consulting me, despite the fact that she had explicitly invited me to be part of the bridal party. She picked dresses for the bridesmaids and asked for our sizes, but wouldn't let me give input or choose my own accessories. She also demanded that I attend every single planning meeting and dress fitting even though my work schedule was chaotic, threatening to replace me in the bridal party if I couldn't make it. At one point, she canceled a rehearsal dinner because I had a work conflict, and I found out she had told our extended family that I was being lazy and uncooperative. I tried to brush it off, thinking she was just stressed, but it really hurt. The breaking point came 2 months before the wedding. Emma called me into a family meeting with our parents and a few cousins to discuss seating arrangements. She had printed out a chart and loudly pointed at my name. "We can't put you at the head table," she said. "You've made it very clear you don't care about the family dynamic, so you'll sit at table 8 with the other drama makers." Everyone looked at me, including my parents. I tried to respond politely, saying I hadn't done anything to deserve that treatment, but she interrupted me, rolling her eyes, and said, "You're always overreacting. This is for everyone's good." I left the meeting crying and didn't speak to her for a week. After that, she sent a text asking me to confirm whether I'd pay for my share of the wedding costs. I was shocked. Her reasoning was that since I had previously offered financial help, I now owed her a fixed amount of $1,200 for the wedding. She said it would cover my dress, accessories, and a portion of the bridal suite. I told her I couldn't pay, explaining that I had already offered my time and energy, that I had work commitments, and that I felt excluded and humiliated multiple times. She responded with a long text about family duty and being supportive, and said that if I didn't pay, I wasn't welcome at the wedding. At that point, I got fed up. I replied calmly that I would not pay, that I felt disrespected, and that her demands were unreasonable. She then started a group chat with our parents, Ryan, and her bridesmaids to clarify the situation. She framed it as though I was trying to sabotage the wedding and said that I was choosing money over family. My parents were furious, saying that I had to either pay or accept not being part of the wedding. I told them that I was hurt by how Emma treated me and that I didn't appreciate being forced into a financial obligation to cover something I was excluded from planning. The day of the wedding came, and I did not attend. Emma made a public post on social media with a photo of the wedding party, captioned something along the lines of "Some family just don't value what matters most." She tagged me. Many relatives reached out privately, asking why I wasn't there. Some of them assumed I was being petty. Others sided with me once I explained everything. The extended family gossip was brutal, and my parents have been somewhat distant since then, frustrated that I didn't do my duty. A few months later, Emma sent me a formal request for the $1,200, citing wedding costs again. I did not respond. She then blocked me on social media. I've been trying to move on, but I feel a mixture of guilt, anger, and sadness. On one hand, I know I didn't technically have to pay. It was never a contract. On the other hand, I feel like I might have caused a rift in the family and that people view me as the villain. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding when she excluded me from the planning process and publicly humiliated me in front of family. I keep replaying every interaction, and I'm not sure if I overreacted or if I was completely justified. Some extra context. I have offered emotional and practical support, including organizing aspects of the wedding that didn't cost money. I do not have the same disposable income as Emma or my parents. My parents are generally supportive, but feel I should put family first. I have no intention of ever attending a future wedding or event hosted by Emma, unless there is a sincere apology and acknowledgement of her behavior. I try to see it from both sides, but the way she handled the situation, especially the public embarrassment, feels unforgivable. The financial demand on top of that feels like a final insult. I'm willing to cut her some slack, but I also feel like boundaries exist for a reason. So, AITA here. AITA for refusing to lend my sister money after she spent years avoiding responsibility for her finances. So, this is going to be a long one because there's a lot of context here. I, 29F, have a younger sister, Mia, 24F. Growing up, Mia was always kind of a free spirit. She's artistic, loves to travel, and has this incredible ability to charm everyone around her. I, on the other hand, have always been the responsible one. I worked hard in school, got a stable job in tech, and have been building my savings since I graduated college. Our parents did their best to support us, but they weren't wealthy, and I think they leaned on me a bit because I was the older one and seemed more capable of managing responsibility. Anyway, fast forward to adulthood. Mia has been hopping between part-time jobs, freelancing, and doing odd gigs for the last 5 years. She's brilliant and talented, but she's consistently avoided long-term planning. She's been struggling with credit card debt, rent payments, and even basic bills. Our parents helped her here and there, but they've gotten tired of it and started setting firmer boundaries. A few months ago, Mia called me in a panic. She had just been evicted from her apartment because she hadn't paid rent for 3 months. She needed $2,000 to cover back rent and move-in fees for a new place, and she asked if I could lend it to her. I explained that I couldn't just give her that amount, partly because I have my own bills and savings goals, and partly because this has been a pattern. Every time she gets in trouble financially, she looks for someone else to bail her out instead of facing the consequences or making a plan. Mia got upset. She said I was being selfish and not a real sister. She reminded me that when we were kids, I used to protect her from our parents when she got into trouble. She argued that families should always help each other, and that I had the means, so I should just help her this one time. I stayed firm, saying that I could help her look for resources like emergency rental assistance programs, budgeting help, and maybe a temporary roommate situation, but I wouldn't lend her money. Things escalated after that. She started posting on social media about family who won't help in times of crisis without tagging me, but it was pretty clear who she was talking about. Our parents got involved, suggesting I should just help her this once, but I didn't budge. I explained that helping her financially now would just reinforce the pattern of irresponsibility, and that she needs to learn to manage her money. Our parents were frustrated and said I was being heartless, which hurt because I do care about Mia deeply. After a week of back and forth, Mia moved in temporarily with a friend, but she hasn't spoken to me much. She occasionally sends passive-aggressive texts like, "Thanks for nothing," or "Enjoy your savings while I'm homeless." Honestly, I feel guilty sometimes because I love my sister and I want her to be okay. At the same time, I can't help but think that bailing her out financially every time she makes poor choices isn't really helping her in the long run. Some friends have told me I'm right for setting boundaries, but others think I could have found a compromise, like lending half the money or setting up a repayment plan. I suggested a repayment plan, but she refused, saying she doesn't want to owe me anything. She also has a habit of asking for money from multiple people at the same time, so I feel like any loan might get complicated or lost in the shuffle. The worst part is, I keep replaying our childhood in my head. I was the one who made sacrifices so she could pursue her art. I covered for her when she skipped school. I lent her my stuff when she couldn't afford it. Now, she's grown up and facing the consequences of her choices, and she seems to think I'm obliged to save her. I feel torn between being the responsible adult and being a supportive sister. To be clear, I'm not unsympathetic. I've offered to help her apply for jobs, review budgets, and find cheaper living options. I've even helped her figure out side hustles she could do temporarily. She just doesn't want to take those options seriously because they don't provide instant relief. I keep thinking that if I give in this time, it sets a precedent for the next crisis and the one after that. I know family is supposed to be there for each other, but I also think enabling someone to continue making poor decisions isn't really helping. I just don't know if I'm crossing a line. My sister hasn't called me in a few weeks, and I'm worried our relationship is going to suffer permanently. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to lend my sister $2,000 when she's facing eviction? AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she insulted my parenting? This all started about 6 months ago and has completely blown up in my family. I, 34F, have a daughter, Emma, who just turned 6. I have been a single mom since she was born. My younger sister, Lily, 29F, is getting married next spring, and things have been fine between us most of my life, but the past few months have been a disaster. Lily has always had a bit of a perfectionist streak. She plans everything to the tiniest detail and has this idea that her wedding has to be magical in every possible way. A few months ago, she announced she wanted to have a destination wedding at a luxury resort and that she would need contributions from everyone in the family for it. My parents were happy to help, but she specifically asked me to cover the kids' costs. She insisted this meant not just Emma, but also any babysitting, travel, and outfits. I was a little taken aback because this ended up being thousands of dollars, far more than I had expected or could comfortably spend. I told her I would help, but I would need a realistic number and a plan. The first problem came when she found out I had put Emma in a simple, modest dress instead of a custom designer gown Lily had pinned on Pinterest. Lily went ballistic. She accused me of ruining the aesthetic of the entire wedding and said Emma would be humiliating in family photos. I explained that I couldn't afford a $400 dress, and she said, "Then maybe you shouldn't bring her if you can't do it right." I was shocked. I told her that was unacceptable and that Emma was coming no matter what, and that I would dress her appropriately, but within our budget. Things escalated at a family meeting last month. Lily pulled me aside while we were discussing logistics and basically lectured me on my parenting. She said Emma was out of control, too loud, and not photogenic enough, and that I should consider hiring a nanny for the wedding to manage her behavior if I wanted to attend. I reminded her that Emma is 6 and that I raise her alone, and that I refuse to spend hundreds on a stranger to babysit my child so Lily can have perfect Instagram pictures. She snapped and said, "Well, maybe this wedding isn't really for you then, is it?" and stormed off. At that point, I started reconsidering how much I was willing to contribute financially. I told Lily I would help with the essentials, like travel for me and Emma, but I would not cover extras like a fancy dress, nanny fees, or special children's activities. Lily accused me of being selfish and not family-oriented, and that I was ruining her big day. My parents tried to mediate, but it didn't help. Lily refused to compromise. A few days later, my brother, 32M, called me and told me that Lily had made a list of people who were financially committed and that I was no longer on it because I had refused to pay for the extras. He said she was planning to exclude me from certain parts of the wedding, like the rehearsal dinner and the post-ceremony party, because I wasn't contributing enough. This made me feel hurt and angry. I love my sister, but the way she was treating me and Emma was unacceptable. Things came to a head this weekend. Lily called me crying on the phone and told me I was forcing her to pick between her wedding dream and her family. She begged me to pay for the dress, the nanny, and a couple of additional activities she had planned for kids. I calmly told her I couldn't do that. I reminded her that I had already been covering travel expenses and that I had promised Emma would be there. She yelled at me, saying, "If you don't do this, I can't even guarantee Emma can walk down the aisle with me." That was the last straw. I told her she could either let Emma participate as a guest without all the extra frills, or she could have a wedding without us. After that call, my parents called me furious. They said I was being unreasonable, that Lily was so hurt, and that I was choosing a child over family. I tried explaining that I wasn't choosing Emma over Lily. I was choosing not to bankrupt myself and not allow my child to be treated as a prop. My parents said I should at least cover part of what Lily asked because it was her big day. Since then, my extended family has been messaging me. Some are saying I should just pay for everything to avoid drama. Others are saying Lily went too far and that I'm right to set boundaries. My sister hasn't spoken to me since, except to send a group text that reads like a passive-aggressive legal notice about financial responsibilities for the wedding. I feel caught between wanting to support my sister and not allowing myself or my daughter to be treated as disposable tools for a wedding aesthetic. I do not think I am wrong to refuse to pay for nanny services and a designer dress, but everyone is framing it as me being selfish. I feel like I'm being punished for setting reasonable limits. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding extras after she insulted my parenting and tried to make me cover thousands of dollars in child management fees. Character count, 6 for 20 if you want. I can also draft a second version that goes even deeper into family tension and drama, hitting closer to 7,000 characters, which tends to make these stories go viral on Reddit. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my younger brother's fiancé stay in my house after what happened last weekend. So, some context. I, 33F, have a younger brother, Jake, 28M, who recently got engaged to a woman named Melissa, 27F. I've known Melissa for about a year now, and honestly, things have always been a bit off. She's charming and friendly on the surface, but she has a tendency to overstep boundaries. My parents adore her, so I've mostly kept my issues private to avoid family drama. I live alone in a small townhouse. It's cozy, not extravagant, but it's mine and I enjoy having control over my space. I also work from home, so I need a fairly quiet environment. A few weeks ago, Jake and Melissa asked if they could crash at my place for a night because they were attending a wedding in the area and didn't want to book a hotel. I thought, okay, fine, one night. I prepare the guest room, made sure there were fresh linens, and even stocked some snacks in the kitchen. The first night went okay, though Melissa seemed a bit clingy. She kept rearranging things in the guest room and commenting on my kitchen setup, which I found slightly annoying but ignored. The next morning, she started cooking breakfast, which would have been fine, except she used every pan I own, made a huge mess, and then left the dirty dishes sitting in the sink for me to clean. I mentioned that I usually do my own dishes and that it would be great if they cleaned up after themselves, but she shrugged it off. I didn't want to start a fight, so I just cleaned up quietly. Things escalated the following night. They stayed for 2 nights, and the second night, Melissa decided she wanted to help me reorganize my living room because she thought it looked cluttered. I specifically told her I didn't need help and that it was my home, but she went ahead anyway. By the time Jake came home from the wedding rehearsal, the living room looked completely different, with furniture moved around, decorations on the floor, and my carefully arranged books and photos in disarray. I was livid, but I didn't explode in front of them. I calmly asked her to return everything to the way it was, and she said, "Oh, it's fine. It actually looks better this way." Then came the last straw. On the day they were leaving, I went into the kitchen to make coffee and discovered that she had taken some of my expensive coffee beans and half my almond milk without asking. When I confronted her about it, she laughed and said, "Oh, I thought you wouldn't mind. It's just a little milk and coffee. It's not a big deal." I was beyond annoyed at this point. I told her that taking things without asking is not okay, especially in someone else's home. She rolled her eyes and said I was overreacting. After they left, I texted Jake privately, explaining that I felt uncomfortable with how Melissa had behaved in my home. I didn't go into detail about the coffee and the dishes because I didn't want him to feel attacked, but I mentioned that I felt my boundaries weren't respected. He got defensive and said, "Come on, she didn't do anything that bad. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. She's just being friendly." I tried to explain that being friendly doesn't mean taking over someone else's home or taking their things, but he brushed it off. Fast forward to last weekend. Jay called me and asked if Melissa could stay at my place again for a couple of nights because their Airbnb fell through. I said absolutely not. I told him that after the last experience, I didn't feel comfortable having her in my home. He went ballistic. He accused me of being controlling and hostile toward Melissa, said I was embarrassing him in front of their friends, and even tried to guilt-trip me by saying that she's his fiancée and I should welcome her like family. I reminded him that she isn't family yet and that my home is my space and I have the right to decide who stays there. Things got worse when he started bringing our parents into the conversation. He said that they would be disappointed in me for not letting her stay, implying that I was being unreasonable. I texted my parents to clarify the situation, and while they were sympathetic to my frustration, they did tell me that I should try to be more accommodating because it's Jake's fiancée. I told them that boundaries are not about accommodation. They're about respect, and Melissa has repeatedly shown she doesn't respect mine. Now, Jake is not speaking to me. Melissa is tagging me in passive-aggressive posts on social media, and my parents are caught in the middle. Some extended family members have asked me why I won't just let her stay one more time, which I feel puts me in an unfair position. I feel like if I give in now, it will set a precedent where my home is treated as a public space for Melissa whenever she wants. I've also considered that maybe I'm being harsh, but after everything that happened, I just don't feel comfortable. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée stay at my house after what happened last time. I'm starting to worry that my relationship with Jake might be permanently damaged over this, and I'm second-guessing whether I handled it the right way. Character count, 6,412 if you want. I can write a second story in a completely different scenario that hits closer to 7,000 characters for even more dramatic Reddit-style tension. It would include multiple twists and family conflicts. Do you want me to do that next? AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend move in with us. Even though she says I'm being selfish, I, 28F, live with my younger sister, Lily, 24F, in a 2-bedroom apartment in a mid-sized city. We've been living together for about 3 years now, and I've always been very conscious about keeping things organized and respecting each other's boundaries. Lily is usually very responsible, though she can sometimes be a bit impulsive. About 6 months ago, Lily started dating a guy named Matt. At first, everything seemed fine. He was charming, funny, and polite when he came over for visits. I made an effort to get along with him because I want Lily to be happy. Over time, though, I started noticing some red flags. He's very demanding and seems to have a sense of entitlement about things, especially when it comes to money and space. The real problem started a couple of months ago when Lily casually mentioned that Matt had been talking about moving in with us. I was taken aback. Our apartment is not that big, and I was already feeling a bit cramped. I told her I wasn't comfortable with that, mainly because I like having my own space, and also because Matt and I hadn't really established a relationship where I felt I could trust him to live in the same space with me. Lily was upset, but didn't push it at the time. However, a few weeks later, she brought it up again, this time with more insistence. She argued that it would help both of them save money, that it would be convenient, and that I shouldn't be so rigid about space just because I live here. I explained that it's not about being rigid. It's about my comfort and boundaries in my own home. She said that was selfish of me and that I was putting my needs above her happiness. I tried to compromise by suggesting that Matt could stay over a few nights a week, but not move in full time. Lily got frustrated and said that wasn't enough for them and that I was being unreasonable. We had a big argument, and she ended up leaving in a huff. After that, things got tense. She started bringing up the topic randomly and would get passive-aggressive whenever Matt was mentioned. For example, she started pointing out all the ways I was supposedly being difficult or antisocial just because I didn't want him living with us. She also started spending more time at Matt's place, which, to be fair, gave me some space, but the tension remained. A couple of weeks ago, Matt actually came over while Lily wasn't home and asked me if he could leave some of his stuff here temporarily since he was thinking about moving in. I said no firmly. He got defensive and said I was making things awkward and that I was pushing Lily away. I told him I wasn't comfortable storing his belongings here or having him move in, and that boundaries are important. He left, muttering something about me being cold. After this, Lily confronted me and said that I was destroying their relationship and that if I really cared about her, I would let Matt move in. She even suggested that maybe I was jealous or didn't trust her judgment. I told her that it's not about jealousy. It's about the fact that it's my home too, and I have a right to feel comfortable. She accused me of being selfish and controlling, and now our interactions have been very strained. Some background context. I've had a few bad experiences with roommates in the past. One moved out owing me a significant amount of money, and another completely trashed the apartment while I was away for a weekend. I've also noticed that Matt is not very responsible with money. He often borrows money from Lily and others and doesn't always pay it back on time. This makes me nervous about sharing living space with him. Our friends have weighed in, and they're split. Some say I'm completely in the right, and that it's unreasonable for me to be expected to let someone move in without my consent. Others say I should be more accommodating because it's my sister, and maybe I'm being too rigid. I'm starting to feel guilty because Lily seems genuinely upset and frustrated, and I don't want to damage our relationship permanently. But at the same time, I feel like letting Matt move in would cause a lot of stress and tension in our home. I've considered setting a strict timeline if he were to move in, like paying rent up front, signing an agreement, or limiting it to a trial period, but part of me feels like if I have to go to those lengths to feel comfortable, maybe I just shouldn't let it happen at all. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend move in, even though she says I'm being selfish? AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of his fiancée? So, this is going to be long, but I need some outside perspective because my family thinks I'm overreacting, but I genuinely feel like I'm in the right. I'm 28F, and my brother, let's call him Ryan, is 32M. Ryan and I have always been really close growing up, and even though we live in different cities now, we still make an effort to catch up whenever possible. About 6 months ago, Ryan started dating someone new. Let's call her Emily. From the very beginning, I didn't like her. At first, I tried really hard to give her the benefit of the doubt. She seemed nice enough when I met her in a casual setting, but as I spent more time around her and Ryan, several red flags started to show. Emily is extremely controlling and manipulative. She has this way of twisting conversations to make herself look like the victim, and she constantly criticizes Ryan, though he doesn't seem to notice it most of the time. I tried to address it gently with Ryan at first, but he brushed it off as me being overly protective. I thought maybe I was being too judgmental, so I tried to step back and be civil. Things came to a head a few months ago when Ryan told me they were engaged. I was honestly shocked because Emily had been treating him poorly, and I didn't understand how he could not see it. I voiced my concerns once more, trying to be careful not to sound like I was attacking him or Emily, but I told him that I couldn't support a relationship where someone treats him the way she treats him. He got really defensive, saying I was trying to sabotage his happiness, and after that conversation, our communication got tense. Now the wedding. Ryan announced it will be in 6 months. I initially said I would go because I wanted to support him despite my reservations about Emily. However, as the planning progressed, I started noticing more things that made me uncomfortable. Emily has started putting down my family subtly, but consistently, making passive-aggressive comments about our lifestyle, belittling our traditions, and even making rude remarks about my parents in front of Ryan. I try to brush it off as nerves or wedding stress, but it's been happening consistently. A few weeks ago, my mother, who has been trying to mediate, called me crying. She said that Emily had made a snide comment at a family dinner about my mother being too old-fashioned to understand the wedding plans, and it wasn't an isolated incident. My parents and I started talking seriously about it, and we realized that Emily doesn't just disrespect my family. She subtly undermines Ryan as well. She constantly questions his decisions, belittles his opinions in front of other people, and manipulates conversations to make herself seem more reasonable or intelligent. After talking it over with my closest friends, I came to a difficult decision. I told Ryan that I would not be attending the wedding. I explained that I couldn't, in good conscience, support a union that I feel is emotionally manipulative and toxic, and that being present would feel like I was condoning the way Emily treats him and my family. I emphasized that I still love Ryan and hope he's happy, but I could not be a part of that day under these circumstances. Ryan reacted extremely badly. He accused me of being selfish, controlling, and trying to ruin his life. He said that I was making an ultimatum and that if I loved him, I would just deal with it for one day. He also told our parents that I was choosing my pride over family, and now they are upset with me. My friends and some extended family support my decision, but Ryan's side, including his fiancée and some of his mutual friends, think I'm overreacting. I feel terrible because I do love Ryan and I wanted to be there for him on his wedding day, but every time I think about being in the same room as Emily and seeing the way she treats him, I get physically anxious. I feel like attending would betray my own values and self-respect, and I can't pretend everything is okay when I see how toxic this relationship is. I also try to compromise by suggesting that I would meet Emily in a neutral setting beforehand to see if maybe I was misjudging her, but she refused. She said that I needed to accept her or stay away, which only reinforced my concerns. I know my decision is going to hurt Ryan, and I feel guilty about that, but I also feel like standing by my boundaries is important. The last thing I want is to have resentment build up over the years because I compromised my values for one day. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of his fiancée, even though he's my brother, and this is his big day. AITA for refusing to lend my sister money, even though she claims it's a matter of family loyalty. So, I, 29F, have always considered myself the responsible one in my family. I have a steady job as a software engineer, a small apartment that I love, and I'm generally good at budgeting and saving. My sister, Laura, 26F, has had a much different path. She's always been a bit reckless with money, bouncing between jobs and frequently asking our parents or me for loans to cover her expenses. A couple of months ago, Laura called me in a panic. She had apparently racked up about $6,000 in credit card debt, and her rent was due in a week. She said that if I didn't help her, she might have to move back in with our parents, which she insisted would destroy our family dynamic because she didn't want to inconvenience them. She begged me to lend her the money, and I told her that I would consider it. Before making any decisions, I asked for specifics. I want to know exactly what the debt was for, how she planned to pay me back, and what she was doing to avoid this situation in the future. She became defensive almost immediately, claiming that I didn't trust her and that I was acting cold. She insisted I just hand over the money, promising that she would figure things out later. I tried to compromise by offering to help in other ways. I suggested creating a strict budget together, helping her find a side job, or even negotiating with the credit card companies to reduce interest or create a repayment plan. She flat out refused, saying that these options were too slow and that she needed cash immediately. I reiterated that lending her $6,000 was a huge financial risk for me, as I have student loans and monthly bills to consider. She said that if I loved her, I would help her. This conversation quickly escalated. She started sending me texts calling me selfish and ungrateful. She even accused me of playing favorites with my younger brother, 27M, who she claims I give more financial help to, which is partially true, though my brother is generally more financially responsible, and I've never had to bail him out like this. Feeling cornered, I made the decision not to lend her the money. I tried to explain my reasoning calmly, emphasizing that I was willing to help in other ways, but she refused to listen. She started posting on social media about how I abandoned my sister in her time of need and tagging me in subtle ways that I could see her posts without commenting. Our parents have now gotten involved, and it's been messy. They think I should just lend her the money to keep the peace and argue that I have the means to do so. I tried explaining that giving in to this behavior would likely repeat the cycle and enable her financial irresponsibility. My mom got upset and said that family comes first, while my dad seemed more neutral but subtly implied that my sister might cut ties if I don't comply. Meanwhile, my sister has gone on a campaign to make me look like the villain in the family. She's claimed to friends and distant relatives that I refused to help her because I didn't care about her well-being, painting me as someone who's cold and selfish. I've been feeling increasingly isolated and guilty, but I also can't shake the feeling that if I give her the money, I will be rewarding her bad habits and essentially punishing myself financially. The tension has gotten so bad that I've started avoiding family gatherings. I don't want to be the target of passive-aggressive comments or have my actions scrutinized by everyone in the room. My parents are pressuring me to come to a family meeting where I might be expected to explain myself, and I'm dreading it. I recently tried to reach out to Laura again, suggesting that we sit down and go over her finances together and make a repayment plan that makes sense for both of us. She refused once more, saying that she didn't want less than a full handout, and that my refusal was proof that I don't love her like she deserves. Honestly, I feel torn. On one hand, I genuinely want to help her and I care about her, but on the other hand, lending $6,000 seems like setting myself up for future problems and continuing a cycle that has always hurt both of us. I've thought about offering a smaller, symbolic loan, but I'm afraid that even a smaller amount will be seen as weakness or failure on my part. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to lend my sister $6,000, even though she's insisting that it's a matter of family loyalty and love. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.